over the time. I also had a very difficult relationship with a toxic person that lasted 9 months. I'd never experienced anything that was so confusing and so, I guess, dumbfounding. I was, even with all my sales skills and with my counseling education, I'd never had a relationship with someone that had very significant childhood trauma. And before I actually got heavily involved with this person, obviously, we were dating for a period of time, and, she had been in talk therapy for at least a year, as well as going to a weekly group meeting for survivors of childhood sexual abuse. And so I thought to myself, wow, this is a safe bet, right? This young lady, she's in therapy, and she's from North America. So most North Americans believe in therapy. She's in therapy. She's got a therapist. She's going to a group once a week. Like, I was actually very impressed by that. And when we actually got married and moved in together, I would say from day 3, the behaviors were very weird. She was very defensive. She was hiding from me, very kind of like on the back foot, bitter, irritated, irritable, uncomfortable. And I thought to myself, what's wrong here? Something's got to be wrong, right? It's like, this girl's in therapy, and like, obviously I didn't expect to marry a perfect person, but the behaviors were very strange from the start. I didn't have any idea about triggers. I didn't have any idea about emotional flashbacks, but something was going on. There was a lot of defensiveness. She was definitely looking at me through some form of a negative lens. Okay. That obviously, we can discuss what that is another time, but so I was completely confused. Like, how was this person in talk therapy for over a year? And she acknowledges her abuse. She told me about her childhood abuse and her emotional neglect from her mother and the other difficult situations that she had in her family as a child. But something was seriously wrong in this relationship. It was very different to past relationships that I had that were also going for maybe 4 or 5 years. And after 4 days in this relationship, I was already starting to scratch my head saying, what's going on with this? How come this person's in therapy and yet there's so much projection happening? There's so much defensiveness. There's gaslighting. This person's not taking responsibility for what they did 5 minutes ago, reframing conversations. So I was, even with my counseling experience and my sales experience, I was very confused. And this is also something that you and I share, is that a toxic relationship was also part of our conditioning to, finding the tools in order to not only help ourselves, but to help others. So I thought that was a very interesting story also that coincides with your story.
Yeah, very much. It's interesting. It's really confusing. And I find also, so in this case, the person had said that she'd also been abused as a child, which is interesting. To me, it's one of the worst possible things I can imagine happening to anyone. It's like it's a mix of all of the most nightmarish things that I could possibly think of. And I realized that because it was a place I didn't want to go to, because I'd asked her to not tell me because I said I don't know if I can cope with it. Which is not particularly courageous of myself, but I was just being honest with my own limits back then.
Yeah.
It meant that I didn't really dig. I didn't really understand what it was. I didn't ask questions. And she was the one not even volunteering information, but forcing information at me when I didn't want it. So like, and even specifically, typically before I'd go on holiday. So there was always the timing of these little bombs that were being dropped. And then it turned out that, so I didn't understand the impact it was meant to have had on her. It meant I excused everything that she did. And it turned out that what she told me, or what she made me believe, was not accurate. So I had another version that I heard in court when she was testifying, and it did not have any resemblance with what I'd imagined, with what she'd hinted at. Using, sometimes it's, language where you assume it means something specific, such as what I told you is just the tip of the iceberg, which means that everything else is much bigger. And then she reframed it, said, well, what I meant was that this is the most important part. Okay, well, that's not what the tip of the iceberg means. And I find it it's really weird when dealing with this, because I think it touches any normal person. It touches us in a very profound way to imagine something like this. And to me, it was really hard to understand this. Now I've understood it. And now when I work with people, it's much easier to say, I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know exactly how they lived it. I don't know how it impacted them. All I can do is ask and not project. And if I'm going through like pain of imagining it, that's not changing anything to them. This is me being self-centered and me trying to process something. So I have to stop doing this.